This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's edition of DocNJock. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me, as always, my guy Adam, the Jock Strozinski. Today, we get to break down a 4-1 football team. Man, does it feel good. Everybody around town is walking around with their Lions hat, their Lions gear. Everybody feels good. People are talking about the Lions being Super Bowl contenders, talking about the Lions in their power rankings as a top 5 NFL team. You not only are defeating teams, but you're going out there against opponents that you're clearly better than and dominating, and that's what good football teams do, and that's what you got here in Detroit. And it's going to be great to break it all down because, man, when you go into a game, you're a little bit nervous that when you don't have Amon-Ra St. Brown, when you don't have Brian Branch, when you don't have really Jameson Williams doing the things that he needs to be doing, and you can still go out there and beat another NFL team by 20 points, now you're cooking. Now you're able to establish what you are as a program. So things are great in Detroit. So many things went well for the Lions. And I think that when you look at this football team, these last couple of weeks have been important for the regime, for the confidence, for the elevated belief that this team now can have. I think this win, even though it's against a football team that's not that good, 0-5, and they got a lot of issues themselves, it's an important win for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think this win signifies a lot of different things that are going well for this team right now. If you look at this team bounced back after a 10-day layoff, right? You've seen what happened last time they did that. They got beat by the Seahawks, and that was a very close game. That was a game that they should have won, but they lost. This game, they came in and they handled business. There was zero letdown. This was a massive team win. You did it on offense, you did it on defense, and you did it on special teams. And every position group won that day. So that is telling. That is a big deal. On top of it, you do what really good teams do. You took care of a bad team. You put a bad team out of its misery. And the thing about it is, you did it by double digits. There's a very few set of teams in the NFL that can go out there on a given Sunday and really take hold and strangle out a game in the first quarter and then really put it out of reach going into halftime. This team did that. This team had zero let up. This team took a team that it was better than. It knew it was better than, and it didn't give it a chance. It didn't give it a heartbeat. It put it out of its misery very quickly. Only a few teams in the NFL have the ability or the wherewithal to be able to go out and do that. This was an incredibly important win because it shows the mindset of this team. This team is hungry. This team is driven. This team is, we'll use the word that gets thrown around a lot around here. This team is gritty. It's willing to do the hard work and keep pushing. This was a monster win for this team, and they looked so damn good and so damn entertaining doing it, which leads me to this. What impressed you more? Was it the defensive performance, or was it the offensive performance, or was there something in there that you liked with special teams? Because I feel like you kind of have your pick of the deck here, man. You can choose whatever flavor you want to choose, and I don't think you'll be wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. It was great performance. That's what it is when you go up against an opponent that has a rookie quarterback, is a team that's kind of reeling confidence-wise. They just don't have enough talent across the board. It was basically playing the team. It was playing the Panthers are the 2021 Lions that just kind of are building and starting over and looking at talent and trying to do whatever it takes. And the Detroit Lions, I think what impressed me the most was the fact that the offense got on the board quickly with Jameson Williams throwing that awesome block and David Montgomery breaking one. Not only has he shown that he can get the gritty runs, he can go out there and he can really play at a high level and combined. And that's what I think everybody was really excited about, was saying, okay, wait a minute. You don't have Amon-Ra St. Brown, but you still got David Montgomery, solid addition, solid guy that can run behind the line. You look at Sam Laporta. That's a guy that's not a normal rookie tight end. That's a guy that can play. He's a game changer. He's like George Kittle. That's the guy that can come in, and when we always say, hey, what can a draft pick do and come in? That's why when you see our account at Detroit Podcast say, what's going on with Jameson Williams? Why can't he be like Sam Laporta? You get the casuals that are just like, well, that's a different position. Well, you kind of were not drafting Jameson Williams to be a casual, just a slow observer into the system.
Yep.
They felt like he could be maybe not the full Sam Laporta, but that he could come in and catch the ball and acclimate.
Bro, his comp was Tyreek Hill. You drafted him to essentially be your Tyreek Hill.
Yeah,
and
a home run.
He's basically shown that he's your Charles Rogers is basically what he is at this moment in time.
At this moment in time, exactly. He's not. And so people have this difficulty going, they just want to say, oh, well, he blocked well. Well, he's into it. Well, yeah, Dan Campbell's going to keep the expectation low publicly, but when he's got a chance to catch a touchdown and he drops it, I'm not happy. I'm not going to be like, great job. Absolutely. Great job. Oh, man, go get him next time. It's going to be like he's dropping a ball every game. So this is not something that's in a vacuum here. He did it in training camp. We talked about it. Can he overcome it? Sure. He's got the talent. But when your coach comes out and says he's not going to be an elite pass catcher, and his early expectations are, I'm going to throw you a 2-yard screen and hope you do something with it, and your stat line is 2 yards, that's like literally game one, day one training camp stuff. Like, you got to be well beyond that. Let your talent shine. I know it's tough, and I know it's going to be an uphill climb, but you got to still show more than what you're showing. That's the biggest wart that's on the team is Jameson Williams. So I hope that he turns it around, but right now everyone's just focusing in on his talent. It hasn't translated yet. So what impressed me was the fact that despite not having your home run threat be the guy that you think he is, you got Josh Reynolds, who's reliable, who's a pro. You got Khalif Raymond, who's a pro. You got David Montgomery. You got Sam Laporta, who has transitioned admirably to the role that he's been given, and the coaching staff is trying to dump as much stuff on him. They're like, oh my God, we might have something here. We're giving him this, he handles it. We give him that, he handles it. Cause they're throwing flea flickers to Sam Laporta. They're not throwing them to Khalif Raymond, they're throwing them to Sam Laporta. And he's done things that are historic in regards to starting his career. Now, there are very wise people and podcasters who drafted him to their fantasy team like myself. I'm a visionary. I knew that he was going to be a focal point of this offense. I knew that David Montgomery was going to be the guy that replaced Jamal Williams in touchdowns. I knew those things. It was pretty, kind of common sense. But I look at it and I say, to still have him go do it is remarkable. So to go out and execute and to have the offense play well, to have Jared Goff really, to have the coaching staff have so much confidence that they can run a play where they throw the ball between his legs and give it to the running back. They're creative. They're fun. They are not willing. They're not shying away from razzle dazzle. They put their pedal to the metal. Still will go for it on fourth down, and they basically, like Aleem McNeil said when I asked, hey, how does it feel to be 3-1? He said, we need to keep on people's necks. And now, cuz it's a great point to be at where you have a football team that's confident in their abilities and they know that when they step out on the field, if they execute, not only can they win games, but they can win by a lot.
Yeah, and you look at the offensive performance. You had 8 different receivers catch a ball. You had 3 different guys rush for a touchdown. Whew. I mean, offensively, you are missing your most valuable piece in Amon-Ra St. Brown, your number 1 wide receiver, yet you get everybody else involved, and there are other guys who step up, and that's what this team preaches. It's next man up. It's always next man up. And to really complement it, I think what the defense did was incredibly impressive, right? You had a ton of pressure coming from that defensive front. The secondary did a fantastic job. So I think you're playing some complementary football here, right? Where you're getting sacks, you're getting tackles for losses, you're getting QB pressures, and you're getting hits on the quarterback, and then those are leading to interceptions. And it seems like each and every week this defense is coming up with a pick, and it's flipping the field and giving the ball back to that offense that we just talked about, that is so proficient and so prolific right now, that is able to put points on the board and able to bury a team that you're better than. So it's really nice to see this complementary football that we've got going on. And I think that there was a massive compliment paid to this team this week with Sunday Night Football, when you had the 49ers taking on the Dallas Cowboys, and you talked about the flea flicker. San Francisco stole that from Detroit. Like, they came out and admitted it. Kyle Shanahan said, yeah, we seen that earlier, and we kind of had something similar, and we're like, it worked. Let's run it. Let's go with it. And look, San Francisco, the 49ers, any way you cut it, they're the best team in the NFL right now. That is the best team, offensively, defensively. And they took on a pretty decent Cowboys team and just handled them, similar to how you handled the Carolina Panthers. And for them to go out and basically pick from what your offensive unit did, what your offensive coordinator put together and put on tape, and then go ahead and run the same exact thing just hours later, I think that's a monster compliment. What did you make of the 49ers stealing the flea flicker, easy for me to say, from the Detroit Lions when it happened hours earlier in the day?
Look, offensive minds know that play. That play's been used in college too. It's a successful play, but to run it's cool.
Flea flickers, but you don't have a double reverse flea flicker.
Right.
That's a lot of different dudes touching a football before it ends up in the line. And look, it ended up in the tight end's hand. Usually it's to like a receiver. They're going to a tight end.
It was cool. It was cool to see. And I love Dan Campbell saying that he watched it and was like, I got a lot of perspective about what this football team is. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. I do want to get your reaction to this, though, because there's a funny story that I got when I was there. I went down because it was my nephew's first game. First time my oldest nephew got a chance to see a Detroit Lions game in person. And so I go see him, and just before the game starts, and I get back to the elevator, and I see two people, older people, wearing Panthers gear. And they're talking about, oh, yeah, we just got to see Bryce Young on the sideline and everything like that. So it's me and about four other people in an elevator. And so just making small talk, I said, oh, how do you know Bryce Young? And the older gentleman looks at me. He's like, oh, through mutual friends. And the elevator opened up, and he got off on the 5th floor. And the lady looked, and I'm looking, and I'm like, okay. And I looked, and the lady's smirking as they leave. And it's another reporter going up to the 7th floor, back to the press box. And she's like, that was actually Bryce Young's parents. And I'm sitting there.
I was assuming it was probably his parents.
Yeah, I was pissed. I was like, I don't want to be that guy that people just lie to. Like, just what? Okay, what would have been? And I know the way it goes. Like, okay, they don't want to draw attention to themselves. They don't want me asking a bunch of questions. But what would have been the harm to say, we're his parents. We're here to watch them in the suite. Bye. Like, let's just say, for example, I start giving them the 5th degree. Oh, what are you? They're like, we're just here. We want to be, kind of low key. We're going to the press box. Okay. Why would you lie to me and say through mutual friends? Like, that's kind of weird, especially knowing the lady was a Carolina reporter, is going to probably tell me that it's not going to be hard to look it up to say, oh, Bryce Young's parents. So I looked it up on Google, and I said, yeah, that's just that was his parents. So I was offended. And I'm like,
they probably don't want to be bothered, and it's just easier for them.
How is it bothering? Look, it's a question. What were they going to do? Let it be like, oh my God, I want an autograph. Oh my God, can you give me his number? They literally were in the elevator going up, and
you didn't know who they were. They didn't know who you were. You could have just been a rando fan.
Right.
No.
But I had a badge, a clear badge that says who I am. But they could have just said, oh, we're his parents, and we're here to enjoy the game. Hopefully it's a good game. Because the second that he told me mutual friends, the elevator door opened. So I just felt like, in that sense, it was kind of offensive to kind of do it like that.
It was weak sauce, and you were upset from the weak sauce that you got from his parents. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
Exactly. And I'm like, that is not, like, I get it. So, I will say, I got my little slice of enjoyment with my headline. If you go see the game headline I wrote, little spicy.
I haven't seen it.
My headline that I wrote when the game was over? The headline was Lions dominate Panthers, Bryce Young comes up short. Which everybody which everybody caught on what I was saying. So it's fun to do, but fine. That's what's going to be. Maybe I wouldn't have wrote that specific headline had I not had that interaction. Maybe not. It was good either way, in that the line. Look, in the end, listen, it's just one of those things that happened. And I say to myself, fine. Dan Campbell looks to the 49ers and is starting to compare. What do you think? If the Lions are healthy, I think if they're healthy, they can give the 49ers a game, but I can't sit here and say right now, McCaffrey's better. I think that Shanahan's more experienced. They got gritty. They just got like 2% better everything across the board than the Lions, but I think it would be a 10-point game. It would be a competitive game.
Yeah, I think it'll be a competitive game as well. Look, I think where that game would be won and lost for the Detroit Lions, it will be up front. It'll be what that defensive line can do, because the way that offense works, I've watched quite a bit of 49ers football this year. The way that offense works is the run really does help set up the pass there, and it helps alleviate a lot of stuff that Brock Purdy has to do. So if you can win up front and you can get pressure and you can contain the run, and when I say get pressure, I mean on the quarterback and hit the quarterback, you have a very solid chance of winning that football game. And I think right now, the way this team is put together, it has the ability to do that. It has the ability to make that game, if we were to get there, and when we get there, they have the ability to make this a very interesting game. And I don't know if I get what you're saying with the 10 points, right? I totally understand where you're coming from, because heads and tails, you go up and down the roster, they're pretty much better at every position except for probably quarterback. And look, Brock Purdy is in the MVP discussion because of what he's been able to do thus far this year, but it really feels like he takes advantage of the system that he's put in. And again, a lot of the heavy lifting is done by that offensive line, and it's done by CMC, and they've got a ton of very gifted wide receivers, which is why it's imperative that Jameson Williams figure it out sooner than later. Like, you need to put it together. You need to get on the Sam Laporta train and start to kind of put things together and be the guy that they drafted you to be, because otherwise, you're just not really helping this team. You're actually a bit of a liability because you're taking up a roster spot that could be utilized somewhere else. But I think it would be an interesting game because the Lions' defensive ends have the ability to get to the quarterback. That defensive front, when you've got a guy like a Benito Jones and you've got an Isaiah Buggs, and they're able to clog up the middle and kind of stuff that run, they're doing a great job. You've got this rotation of D linemen that just kind of come in and fill, and then you've got this rotation of linebackers that come in and fill. I think it keeps everybody fresh, keeps everybody's motor high, and it allows you to add that extra pressure. And then, again, talk about it. When you put the pressure on the quarterback tends to throw bad passes. It leads to interceptions, and you're seeing guys like Jerry Jacobs come down with picks left and right, and it's getting that offense the ball back. So I think it would be an interesting game. I think 10 points is probably a little too much. I think right now I would say it'd probably be a 5-point difference. I'm going to split the difference with you. I'm going to go 5 points. I think the 49ers would probably win by. But it'd be an interesting and it'd be a fascinating game to watch. I think it'd be absolutely fantastic. But we've talked a lot about a lot of good things going on with this team. Some things that aren't so good. We've got some health concerns with this team. This roster is pretty beat up. You had Emmanuel Mosely getting his first game in over a year and ends up blowing his other ACL. Two plays in, this guy blows out his other leg. You got Amon-Ra St. Brown dealing with an abdominal injury, and this could be something that could be a long-term thing. They haven't really come out and said what it is. They said it's an abdominal injury, so it could be an oblique strain, could be a sports hernia. It could be just an ab strain, which that would hopefully be best case scenario. Gibbs has been banged up. You've got Brian Branch out with an ankle injury. You've got Kabinda out with a knee injury. Mitchell dealing with a hamstring injury. You've got Decker dealing with an ankle injury. Kirby Joseph dealing with a hip injury. You've got Okwara dealing with a shoulder injury. Josh Reynolds played a pretty decent game, dealing with a bit of a groin strain. You got Vaitai dealing with a knee injury. You've got injuries up and down this roster right now. What's your concern level with the help of this group? Because we're talking glowingly about this team and what they've been able to do, and we've talked about the next man up mentality. But after a while, you know as well as I know, the game of football and itself is a game of attrition. And after a while, those injuries start to catch up to you, and it becomes difficult to overcome them. I have a little bit of concern specifically with St. Brown because, again, an abdominal injury, not very specific what it is. It could be something that could stretch throughout the season. It could also be something that is wrapped up this week. We just don't know. So I'm quite concerned with some of these injuries. Where are you at with this roster and its health right now?
Yeah, I think Amon-Ra St. Brown's going to be back, so I think there's an opportunity to have that take place. So that'll be a good sign. So I think that's good. Brian Branch might be different, so we'll see. I'm not as concerned because I think you got to give credit to Brad Holmes. A lot of the players like Will Harris and Jerry Jacobs and those that are stepping up from the practice squad have done a good job of filling in. And I think the sign of a good team is that, hey, some of the guys that used to be starters are reserves. They're coming in and doing a good job.
Yeah, you know what I think is something that's important? If you look at the depth that this front office has built with this team, a lot of the guys who are now your depth guys, your role players, these were guys who were starters for you a year ago, 2 years ago. So it's not like these guys are unfamiliar with that situation. Now, is their peak what the guys who are banged up is? No, it's not. But it's not like you're putting a rookie in there. It's not like you're putting in a guy who's a third-tier player. You're putting in a guy who could probably start for just about half the league, really and truly. So you're going to get some valuable downs out of them. You're going to get some valuable production. My concern is how much more. I mean, we're very early in the season. What are we? We're 5 games into the season. We're not even into week 6 yet. And I've just went through and named off a list of players who are dealing with some type of injury. After a certain point, man, it just it wears on you. And you getting your bye week isn't usually enough time for you to really rest up and recover. I think this team does a very good job. And specifically, I think Dan Campbell does a very good job of really trying to keep their bodies fresh. He knows when to push them, knows when to take the foot off the gas. And I think what will help this team long-term is when they get their bye, I think they'll come back much healthier. But they also have a couple Thursday games a little bit later in the season. You know, they've got Thanksgiving. And so, yeah, it's a very short week, and it sucks to get ready for a game on that short week. But coming out of that short week, you generally have 10 days. And you've got quite a few days where you can kind of rest and recover, and you can kind of get back on track. And it's like getting a little bit of a boost. So I think the way the schedule sets up for this team is quite favorable, but I just don't know how many more of these injuries we need to be concerned with and how much more of these injuries this team can withstand before it really starts to hamper what they're trying to do offensively and defensively.
Got it. I think that when you look forward, what do you think about this game against Tampa? The early favorites, I think they have a good chance, but Baker Mayfield's playing really well.
Yeah, I've been surprised by Baker this year. I think he's in a really good situation. I think the team likes him. I think the guys respect him. I think he learned a lot going through what he went through in Cleveland. And if you go back and you look at what he did in Cleveland, he was a pretty good quarterback in Cleveland. Like he wasn't Tom Brady, and he wasn't what Jared Goff is to this team, but he was a guy who could win you games. He was a guy who had some moxie. He was a guy who could help you take over a game, you know? And you look at what happened that last season. That last season, he played that entire year, banged up, beat up ribs, banged up ankle, messed up foot, tore up shoulder. Like his shoulder was shredded. It would have been smart for that guy to just go on IR and not have played. You know, it probably would have salvaged his career in Cleveland. Instead, he goes out there, guts it out, does what we always talk about as fans. Go out there, gut it out, play hurt, play banged up, lay it all on the line, do it all for your team. It's a team game. Go out there and support your teammates. He did that. And what happened? Team turned on him. The entire organization turned on him. So I think you've got a guy who's in a much better spot. I think he's got some maturity. He's kind of matured from that situation in Cleveland. He's kind of grown up a little bit, understands things. He's still got a little bit of razzle-dazzle, but he's not doing every other Home Depot commercial, and he's not all over TV. Doesn't really look like he's believing his own hype at this moment in time. He just seems like he's a good dude going out there, playing hard and trying hard. And I think he's helped kind of calm the waters in Tampa Bay. Because, look, going into the season, I think most people had Tampa Bay written off. Right now, they are leading their division. This game is important. It's a very important game for both the Lions and the Bucs when it comes towards playoff seeding. And yeah, I'm looking down the road here, because if the Bucs continue to win and the Lions continue to win, this could be what determines who's possibly getting second or third place in the playoff standings. I think at this moment in time, I think we all believe the 49ers are the best team, probably followed by the Eagles. I would say the Lions are the third best team, and I think they'd give the Eagles a run for their money. I already told you, I believe it'd be a closer game than you when it comes to the 49ers. And the Bucs are in competition for that spot that the Lions are working for when it comes to playoff contention. So you get the Bucs off a bye week. You know, it's always difficult to play a team off the bye. They're fresher. They've had basically a week and some change to prepare for you and to get ready for you. They watched your game on Sunday. Also, Jared Goff, let me tell you, as a Jared Goff fantasy owner, doesn't play great on the road. So tends to be, look, he just came off a 4-touchdown week at home. You'll be lucky if he throws 2 in this game. So I'm looking at the run and it being a very run-dominant game for the Detroit Lions. My expectations are a win from this team. I think they go down. I think it's a gritty, gutty win. I don't think it's an easy steamroll. I think this team knows what it has to do. I think that Seattle game resonated with this team. And I think this team understands that it has to go to Tampa Bay. It's going to have to do the work. It's going to have to get bloody. It's going to have to get dusty. And they're going to have to scrap and claw to come away with a win. I think this team wins it by, we'll say, 3. I think it'll be a very interesting game. I think the big thing is if you're a Lions fan, where's your head at if they go down to Tampa Bay and they lose this game? Does it become same old Lions, or are you at a place of maturity where you're like, okay, it's a good team. They went on a road. A team coming off a bye. You're not going to win every game. You're just not. It's just not going to happen. Like, this team's going to lose another game, of course, this season. Like, we all understand this. If this is one of those games, is it the end of the world, or are you like, it's okay? We've got who is it? Baltimore is the week after. It's on to Baltimore. Let's just go put our head down. Let's go to work. Where are you at with it? Because this is an important game. And I think this next stretch that this team has over the course of I think it's next 4 weeks, it can really determine a lot for you. Like, this team could be a Super Bowl contender. This team could be an NFC championship contender. This team could just be a playoff contender, or this team could just be a division winner, depending on how these next couple of weeks go. Where are you at if this team doesn't come away with a big win against Tampa Bay?
Yeah, I always want to see how they play. I think that, obviously, I think one of the things that the Lions are focusing in on is making sure they score in the second half. They had a better drive. They ended up on the 1 when the third quarter ended, but they still are struggling scoring points. They started the quarter with a 6-minute drive, I think, this game, but the points now just didn't come. So I want to see how they play in the second half. I do want to see a little bit more explosiveness in terms of deep passes. I do want to see a little bit of cleaning up a little bit of the mistakes in terms of Dan Campbell challenges if he makes them, because they haven't been good. And I want to see how they handle the clock, because this is one of those intermediate games. Do they go for it if they need to kick a 51-yarder? I want to see how Dan Campbell handled those things, but I fully expect this team to win. I mean, I'm confident. I think that you can force Baker Mayfield into some mistakes, and if Aiden Hutchinson and Jerry Jacobs and Cam Sutton and those linebackers and the defensive line continue to thump the football out, you got as good a chance as any. But Tampa Bay is stout at home. It's going to be tough, but the crowd is going to have some Lions fans in it, so I'm very excited to see. I think it's going to be a very close game. It's not going to be a 20-point victory, but I do think the Lions can win by 3 to 7 points and gut one out. It's going to be real interesting. If you get Jahmyr Gibbs back, you get a home run threat. You know, those explosive plays are great. They help you win. David Montgomery did a great job. Jameson Williams is going to get a little bit more action, some more run. Maybe you get him involved a little bit. You just have the better team. It's just, can you unlock it and execute? Now we're at a point where if the Lions execute and they play their A game, that A game is good enough to defeat a lot of people.
What's your take on the usage of Riley Patterson? Like I'm so frustrated by this team's fear. I don't know if it's just what he's showing in practice. I don't know what it is, but there are times where you're like, just kick the field goal. And this team's like in a 4th and 4, and they're somewhere near midfield, and they're like, all right, we're just going to go for it. What's your take on Riley Patterson and this coaching staff not wanting to utilize him and not giving him the opportunity to kick a field goal?
I think he gets lucky because they played bad teams. Against good teams, we got to see. Does that make sense? I think that the punishment when even they mess up the challenge is no big deal. I think that even when he goes for it on 4th down against a team like the Panthers, it didn't affect anything. They were able to capitalize on all the mistakes that the Panthers made. It had no impact. My tweet was, you know what? They can do whatever they want this game. They're going to win. They're just clearly better and clearly more confident. I just think that this game might have more ramifications. Dan Campbell was asked about it. He said he's confident in him, but I think the actions indicate that his range is about reliable from 40, 50. They're going to take more chances and go for it on 4th down. That's the signal, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Dan Campbell's excited by or believes in him. I think his actions have told you everything that you need to know about where he feels Riley Patterson fits on this team, and where he fits on this team is close to left out. I don't think Dan Campbell has any confidence in this kicking game, and I'm not sure why. I think Patterson has done enough to where at some point you're going to need him to kick you a field goal. You might as well get some confidence in him, and you might as well understand what you have with him. So when it comes time for that, this isn't foreign territory. This isn't something new for you. You're not trying to just roll a guy out there and let's just roll the dice and see what happens. I think at some point you've got to start utilizing your kicker. And, look, 4th and 4 from the 38, it makes it like a 40, probably like a 48, maybe a yard field goal. Find out what you got. Find out what you have with him, and let's see what it does. Because I'm just not understanding what this team is trying to do or what this team is trying to accomplish by not getting him any reps. Like, yeah, cool, he's good for the extra point. Remember Ndamukong Suh? Ndamukong Suh used to be able to kick extra points. Like you can get a lineman to do that essentially. You got to see what you got with your kicker. You keep beating him down and not giving him a chance to go out there and show what he can do. It just doesn't make sense to me. And for me, it's a giant red flag for this team because I feel like I said, at some point you're going to need him to make a big kick. And what are you going to do? You're going to bring him out of mothballs and roll him out on the field? I think this team gets lucky because, like you said, they have played teams that are less than. And Dan Campbell gets a little bit of luck because the team is able to overcome those bad challenges and is able to overcome turning the ball over. At a certain point, when you play better teams and everything gets ratcheted up and it's more of a pressure cooker situation, you're probably not going to get that lucky. It's probably going to turn against you. So at a certain point, you got to see what you got with your kicker because this is kind of the time to make the change if you have to do it. And I think Riley Patterson has enough in him to be able to do what he's being asked to do. I just don't think the coaching staff has the faith in him, which is alarming to me. I mean, I know it's a kicker, and we're kind of parsing about a kicker right now, but like you got to get some production out of this guy. Otherwise, it's like having Jameson Williams. What the hell are we doing with this guy? Just taking up a roster spot. Get somebody else in here who can do something.
Absolutely.
So it's interesting to me.
One last thing about the Lions. How good does it feel to be 4-1? I know the players are always like, man, let's focus. The Lions have had good teams. Obviously, I remember the team that lost to the Saints in the playoffs. Remember the Stafford era as they got going. Obviously, we kicked off this podcast with the 2014 season when they got effed over in the Dallas playoff game. But after that 2014 season, we did get a little bit of regular season success, but it was always up and down. It was kind of like it harkened back to Wayne Fontes when the team would have one good year, then one bad year. The Caldwell era was good, but it wasn't dominant. There was always like a plethora of games where they didn't play well. Had a lot of 9-7 years, and you look at it and you said it kind of culminated with that playoff loss to Seattle when you went out there and just got thumped and didn't even play well offensively. It just kind of had a feeling of like ugh. And then the Patricia era was god-awful and never got off the ground. But this is different because this has a feel of like a 13-win team because of the fact that, if you guys don't know, we know here at the podcast because we're looking into it. The Lions have the 31st, in terms of strength of schedule, 31st out of 32nd in terms of ease. That's how good the schedule shakes out. So even if you struggle against the Buccaneers and Ravens, the rest of the way, you're playing the Bears, the Vikings, the teams that are in the low. You're going to potentially, maybe even bold prediction, have a chance to score 80 on Denver if they've completely shit the bed and decided to mail it in on their coach. I don't know if Dan Campbell would do that to his protege, but boy, would that be awesome.
Oh, that would be great. It'd be fantastic.
It feels good to talk about a football team at least knowing that there's a potential of securing the NFC because of how bad it is, and knowing that you're good enough to roll off. Maybe I even underestimated at 11 wins. This team could be 12-5.
If you look at this team, right, you look, what is it, the next?
Schedule looks good. Looks good. A lot of winnable games.
When is their bye? Their bye is
after I think week 8, week 9. They play 8 games, I think, or it's either they play 8 games and the bye week is 9, or they play 9 games and they play. So it's like almost smack dab in the middle of the year. So
this team looks like it's going to be the week of like November 5th. Looks like that's their bye week. So it's after the Raiders game. So this team, if you look at it like this, right now, this team is 4-1. Take on the Bucs if you get a win there. You go to the Ravens if you can eke out a win there. You take on the Raiders and you get a win there because they look like a dysfunctional football team. That sets you up to go to the bye and then come out and then take on a Chargers team that you'll be fresher for because you've had your bye. At that point, you're at 8-1. All right. So depending on what happens against the Chargers, you then take on the Bears 2 more times. So now we're 8-1. Shit, we'll say we're 7-2. You still have to play the Bears twice. You got Green Bay 1 more time. So now you're possibly looking at 10 wins there. You take on the Broncos, like you said. So that's 11. You're looking at the Vikings 2 more times. So it could be 13 wins right there, and that's just us talking about it, right? I think the Saints is a gettable game. I think Dallas is our frauds. That's a gettable game. I think really and truly, when you break it down, the way the schedule looks going forward, it's going to be the game against the Ravens on October 22nd, and it's going to be the game coming out of the bye on November 12th against the Chargers. Both of those are road games. I think those are going to be your 2 toughest games that you have left on your schedule. After that, everything is gettable. Everything you can do. This team has the opportunity to really go out there and make a ton of statements week in and week out by just compiling W's. That's why when we talk about it, as long as the 49ers keep handling their business, you're in prime position to possibly set up and take that second seed, and that's important. That is super important. So it'll be interesting to see what happens because that 7th place team could come out of the South, and I don't think anybody from the South really is all that scary. I mean, we're talking about the Bucs leading that division right now. You've got the Saints. You've already handled the Falcons. You've already taken on the Panthers. So somebody from the South, it doesn't really seem to scare you all that much. So it'll be interesting to see how this season rolls forward. But I think this team is in prime opportunity to really take care of business and handle things. And it's weird being in this position. We say it every week now. It is weird being a good football team. It is really, really strange. I was at a doctor's appointment, and I was goofing around on Twitter, and what's her name? Annie Agar or whatever it is, the chick who does the weekly NFL snippets where she's like everybody from every team.
Yep.
I was watching it, and it was funny because she's hammering Denver. She's hammering the Bears. She's hammering the Raiders. She's hammering all these teams. And there's about 15 seconds worth of material on Detroit. And it's all complimentary football. It's all about how good this team is. It's all pats on the back. It's just weird. It's like we live in a bizarro land. It is strange, man. And it is great. I love it. I never thought I'd ever see the day where this team would actually be relevant and be good. And they are. And it's fantastic.
It's fantastic. It's amazing. It's a great opportunity for the Lions to really captivate the NFL world. I mean, Sports Illustrated, their writer Connor Orr discussed it, and we have it on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast, looking like potential Super Bowl caliber team. I think they have a chance to win playoff games. They have a chance. And if they can get healthy, at the right time and peak, boy, this could be more than just a get to the playoffs type situation. We'll see how it plays out, but 4-1, a beautiful start. And hopefully the same kind of luck that the Lions have started with this year, the Red Wings can enjoy as they look to get out of this rut that they've been in terms of making the playoffs. But because I will say this, I love the passion that I saw from Red Wings Twitter this year to start the year. They hammered Steve Yzerman saying, wait a minute, what's up with this rebuild when you have no first or second year guys on the roster? I thought that the debate was very fair and very measured. It was something where people scratched their head and said, wait a minute, you got this big, huge defenseman, I think Soderberg, that potentially could do something, and he's not there. You look at it and you say, I liked some of the pushback that Red Wings Twitter brought to the table. What do you make of the opening roster? Now, some of the media said, come on, guys, calm down. The fury over opening day rosters is a little bit much, but I do think that Stevie went with a little bit more experience to start the year.
Yeah, I think so too. It feels a little bit safe, and it feels a little bit like the days of Ken Holland, where you've got guys who I think all of us feel like, let's see what they got, let's see if they can make the jump, and you're keeping them in the minors. Yep. Why? What are we doing? Did you maybe not draft well enough? What's going on here? And look, Steve Yzerman has done a hell of a job. 1, drafting, 2, developing talent, and 3, executing in free agency. I think he's done a great job. But going into this season, I think most fans agree it is playoffs or bust for this team. Like, you've got to get on the horse. You've got to make this run, and you've got to figure out a way to get in the playoffs. It has been far too long where we've just kind of sat on the side and just kind of watched this team kind of try to figure it out. I mean, last season was exciting for about, 48 hours, where the team was in last place to get in the playoffs. And all of a sudden, everybody was talking about the Red Wings. And then they went out and I think they lost the next 3 games. And after that, they didn't sniff the playoffs. So for me, I'm all in on this season. It is playoffs or bust for this team. If this team doesn't get into the playoffs, we've got to talk about what is really going on with this team. And you know what? You have to start pointing fingers at Steve Yzerman and asking him, what the hell is he doing? So season gets underway today on Thursday. I'm expecting to see something here. I'm expecting to see a team that is going to make a push and is going to do something. What's your expectations for this team? Is it playoffs or bust for you, or does Steve Yzerman maybe get another year before you really start kind of turning up the heat on him?
No, I think they got to make the playoffs. They got to be a team that is contending for the playoffs. And the good sign that gives me hope, because obviously when you go into a season, you say, man, okay, this is a team that's Steve Yzerman has carte blanche to take his sweet-ass time. I'm not that patient, but he seems to be given the keys to the castle. And he said, I'm doing this the right way so that we can have sustained success. You looked at it last year, and it seemed like they were on the verge, and then the Sentinel 2 games against Ottawa just really deflated Steve Yzerman's balloon. He's like, this is not, I don't really want to compete in the postseason. We probably get our ass kicked. So let's just look to the future and acquire some assets. I think this year, with the addition of a goal scorer, a proven goal scorer in DeBrincat, I think the defense is better. You do have more veteran leadership. I think the makeup is really good. And I do expect, again, Dylan Larkin to take another step forward, to play well. I think the lines are a lot more balanced. When you look at it top to bottom, it's a much better club. And this is the club now that we can start to assess how good of a mixer and matcher is Lalonde. The special teams got better. Everything got better in metric-wise last year. So now you got goaltending. I'm okay, but I think that when you look at it, Husso is really good, a starting caliber goalie that's going to do well. But man, they rode his ass to the ground last year, and he started to fade towards the end. So I looked at his numbers, and they were really good to start, but they started to tail off a little bit as the season went astray. I'm looking at this hockey club, and I say, I think it's a playoff team, but I think it's a sweep first round kind of team where they just win a game, if that, and they don't have enough physicality. They don't have enough goal scoring just yet to win a playoff series. So it's kind of like that team that lost in the early 90s to San Jose and Toronto and started to build that confidence, but didn't have the success. I think it's in that kind of range. And then hopefully in the next 3 years, it's kind of like the 90-91 teams. And then hopefully as they continue to move forward, you get the team that culminates in the 95 squad where they can make their appearance back. Because, the Pistons, Tigers, and Red Wings, they got to look how excited people are with the Lions. People are walking around strutting. They're feel good. You got Lions Twitter beefing with 49ers Twitter. You got writers trying to make a name for themselves, just openly saying the Lions are better than the 49ers, which is funny to say it and to be willing to say it in print. But it's a good feeling when Detroit sports is back. I mean, Devin Booker in town to see the Lions. You got Eminem getting into the crowd. All the stars are showing up, and it's good to see when Detroit sports are good. And especially the Red Wings and the Pistons and Tigers, if they can pull, the foundation's there. I think we're about to see a renaissance in Detroit sports, and we're at the verge of it. And I'm excited to be a part of it, broadcasting with you and looking at it from the side of all the rebuilds we've been going through for the last 5 years. We've done 531 episodes or so, 532, and damn near 300 of them have been talking about rebuilds and tanking and coaching and regime changes. And we're ready for the next 500 to be about like what we're talking about with the Lions, where we can look at intricate strategies, look at decision-making, look at players that are selected and where they could be much more entertaining. I mean, this hour flew by. We could talk about it for another 2 hours in regards to everything going on with the Lions. So let's just hope that this Red Wing squad gives everybody what they deserve. And I think that DeBrincat was the kind of the shot in the arm. It was something that everybody wanted to see and everybody clamored for, and now he's a dude that can at least give people reasons to show up every night to LCA, because it was pretty thin last year. And I think that Steve Yzerman, listen, you still got to trust him. I do think that you do. I'm very happy with Red Wings Twitter. I'm very happy that you guys pushed back a little bit, spoke your mind, because you felt like, hey, let's go, push the young people a little bit. You know, we don't want to marinate our players for forever. And I'm proud of supporters that question things and wonder why certain things are done. Blind loyalty is not what's needed. Pay attention, and you want what's best for your teams, and I'm very happy for it. Cuz, great broadcast. Always enjoy spending time with you, looking at all the fun success that the Lions are having. Good shit going down in the world of the NFL, and it makes things so much fun, too, to watch at night, to sit down and do all the work and broadcast and podcast and cover the team when they're winning. Everybody's a lot more friendly. So if you're the appearance of the opposition and you just want to lie to me, that's fine. I don't bite. I'm not like TMZ. I don't have a camera. I'm just a dude standing there with a badge on. All I would have said was good luck and hope you have a great stay in Detroit. That's all I would have said through mutual friends. Come on, let's be real here, folks. Come on, it's Detroit. I don't have a camera. I'm not gonna bite your head off. I'm not gonna ask for an interview. I'm not gonna tailgate. I'm not gonna tail you when you leave out the thing. You could just even tell me, hey, we're here. We want to be low key. Thanks. And that's way better than just blatantly lying. Literally, the lady that they were talking to, they had to know was a media member. It was a Carolina media member. So do they not think that she's just going to tell me that they were it was weird interactions. Those are the kind of things that you think about when you're walking back to the press box. Like, why do that? I would never do that. I just would be like, yeah, we're his parents. We're here in town a couple of days. Hopefully it's a good game. It's going to be uphill. You all got a good team, and walk out. Be real. But to look, I think it's hard to do, to look someone square in the face and lie to them. It's crazy. But that's what happened to me. I took offense to it, but I got my revenge in my way. Cuz, great broadcast. I'm very excited for the Tampa game. 425 doesn't suit kind of the things I want to be doing, but at least we'll get an opportunity to rest a little bit at 1 o'clock and do some of the red zone action and enjoy some of the games. Good shit. Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSJRZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. Doing good shit, man. Having a good time here on Twitter and via the internet. Always enjoy firing it up, because I can't wait to break it all down. Potentially, cuz 5-1 Detroit Lions. That sounds crazy, doesn't it?
It sounds absolutely bonkers, and I'm excited for it, man. I'm here for it. So let's go. Let's get a big win on Sunday, and let's turn around and put our attention towards Baltimore, and hopefully we get another dub there, and we just keep rocking and rolling.
That's absolutely. Can't wait to fire up the next episode of Doc and Jock.